Hello everyone! I don't know how to introduce this video, so let's move to the albums. First of all, this album cover looks like a 2012 Tumblr post. Second of all, this is easily Evanescence's worst album. I don't think it's bad, but the production feels compressed, and it's by far the weakest crop of songs they've ever released. And while none of their albums were perfect, they would always have some songs that would blow my goddamn mind. Fallen had My Immortal and My Last Breath. The Open Door had Call Me When You're Sober and Lithium. Their self-titled had The Change and Oceans. The Bitter Truth has... Yep. I mean, I really like the positive highlights on screen right now, but I'm not crazy about them. So to me, this album is a disappointment, especially considering Evanescence is one of my favorite bands ever. And plus, I'm pretty upset this album didn't show any artistic evolution to them. It's just a knockoff Open Door and that's it. After Synthesis, I was expecting them to be way more wild with their stuff, but no, it's just that. The air right is the negative highlight and 65% is the score. To every Nick Cave fan watching this, please answer me. Was this a good way to start listening to his stuff? Prior to this album, I wasn't familiar with his music whatsoever, but I know how acclaimed he is. And listening to this, while I liked it, I can't help but keep thinking I'd have liked this more if I knew more of his music. It might be something of my head, but who knows. Quick update, after recording this I listened to Thunder Prey, and I'm still not feeling it. Suggestions are still welcome though. Besides that, as I said before, I did like the album, I'm just not head over heels for it. The first half didn't really click with me, but the second half was much more enjoyable. This is some very emotional and passionate music, and I do want to see how my thoughts on this album are going to be after I get more familiar with Nick's music. But for now, these are the positive highlights, these are the negatives, and the score is 73%. With this review, Grande Royale officially becomes the first act I ever reviewed twice in this channel. Woo! Too bad this new album is lame as hell. Back when I reviewed Take It Easy, I said the band was starting to break the mold of just a generic rock and roll revival band, and it was actually starting to develop a sound of their own, and that was the way to keep going. In this new album, they took my advice, and threw it in the toilet and flushed it. Yes, we are back to zero. This is just as generic as the band's earlier material. Not only that, but this album has incredibly repetitive riffs and structures, and the voice of the lead singer has gotten significantly worse here. He tries to be loud, but his voice can't handle it. All of these factors combined makes this album be incredibly mind-numbing. Sure, we do have some songs that are pretty cool, the positive highlights in case, but it only goes so far. And this album to me is one of the most disappointing releases of the year, and I will use one of the track titles of the album to define it. Ain't Got So. Talking about track titles, here are the negative highlights of this 47% scored album. I gotta say that, but when NFR came out, I was skeptical on it. But before listening to this record, I decided to re-listen to it, and my impression was much better. And I don't know if this was my impression because I heard both records back to back, but to me, this new record feels like a bunch of NFR B-Sides. It's all upon the same base, just in a more diluted way. The performances are weaker, the instrumentation feels very weary, and the only thing I can really compliment is the lyrics and the positive highlights. And overall it's very pretty, but it's just a huge letdown from NFR. Especially the negative highlights. Maybe in 2 years this will change? Who knows. But for now, 58% to this one. Can I be very honest with you guys? I don't really get the hate this EP is getting. Let's see. Political lyrics contrasted with bizarre lines that reference food? Check. Serj doing bizarre noises? Check. Great guitar work and powerful choruses? Also check. Everything seems right to me. I'm really struggling to see what's so terrible about this. Sure, it's chaotic, and the production is a lot more dense than his previous stuff to me. But I still don't see what exactly makes this that inferior to Soul's stuff. Sure, it's not chop suey or anything, but it's not bounce either. I really enjoy this EP, and sure, it has a song called Your Mom in it, but that's nowhere near as bad as it sounds. In fact, I made dare to say it's their best song here. Together with the positive highlights, and in fact there are no negative highlights in here. To me this EP was well spent 20 minutes. It's a fresh ratatouille of metal and grooves. 87%. Sure, it's not like a mind-blowing rap project or something. It's just a well-made, upbeat rap album. 24kGoldn's flow is pretty fun to listen, and I'm glad the beats have a decent distinguishability. Is that even a word to that? Sure, there are some questionable lines along the way, but nothing here is truly awful. Overall, if you like this kind of music, go for it. I recommend especially the positive highlights, but not so much the negative ones. Overall, the score I give here is 71%. To me, this album is the definition of a product of great quality, but it's not really one that I gravitate towards. The genre fusions are well executed, the instrumentation was great, especially the saxophones, the positive highlights are awesome, the lyrics carry a lot of weight, and the style of the album is very unique, and shows that Chase has a really bright future ahead. But even with all of that, I didn't connect with this album as much as I was thinking I would. This can mean two things. Either the artist is just building up to soon release an album that will truly be a masterpiece, and will get bolder in Rachel music in a matter of seconds, or his music is just not my style. But if that's the case, at least I can say this album is a total recommendation to me. Don't miss out on that one, even if I myself wasn't totally mind blown by it. And before I forget, here are the negative highlights, and the score of this album is 75%. The opening track of this album is one of the best songs of the year. It's incredibly energetic, and Jacob Bank's bulldozer of a voice transcends this song to one of the most dynamic tracks of his entire career. And believe it or not, that's a problem in the context of this release. A huge chunk of the songs are very slow, and they are more focused in the quiet side of soul. But since the opening of the album here is so explosive and so good, it leaves you wanting more of it, which you don't get, and this makes all the momentum of the album vanish, like Thanos just snapped. It does recover a bit of that in the last tracks, but at that point it's already too late. A thing that could have helped this record is if Banks at least tried using his higher register more. Here it's only present in the first track. And those higher notes are honestly always the best part of a Jacob Banks song, as his last album has proven, but this one just falls flat, and to me it's just a little above average. Here are the positive highlights, with Parade of course being the best track, and now the negatives. Final score of 64% superb. In my opinion, Jake is at his best when he's showing the more lively side of his music. That's why his previous album, Our Lives, is one of my favorite modern soul releases. Sure, that album has its lower songs, but they work well because they have multiple factors that hold you in. That can be in Jake's vocal performance, the production, the lyrics, whatever. In honesty, not only out of the 7 songs of this record, 6 are slow, but their notable characteristics aren't nowhere near as potent as his previous low songs. They're all love songs that have a pretty normal songwriting, fine composition, and overall make the album feel very strengthless. I'm not saying these songs are bad, because they aren't. The positive highlights especially. I do like every track in here. I just wanted this album to be more, especially considering how much I like Our Lives and a bunch of Jake's previous EPs. However, Wake Up is the sole negative highlight to this album, that I rank as 74% superb. Well, I feel like the main thing I gotta say about this album is that it's not bad when it comes to the songs, but the concept of the album is completely misguided. The album begins with a Martin Luther King quote, and in the middle of the album there's an interlude that, again, is Martin Luther King speaking about justice. So this implies the album is gonna be just in telling everything that is wrong with this world, that we need to find hope, we need to... Nope, it's just a bunch of love songs. If it didn't have those quotes, if it was called I Love You Girl or something, this would have been a fine record, and I would actually give a 65% score, or maybe even higher. But no, you had to add these segments that add nothing to the concept of the album, and in fact they are only the merit to MLK's legacy. At least some tracks in here are actually enjoyable. The positive highlights are some of the best songs of his entire career. But even with that, we have stuff like Lonely, that despite having some of the best lyrics of the album, it's buried by the pathetic melody, and Peaches, that would be his most ridiculous chorus if it wasn't for Yummy. These two are the negative highlights together with the MLK songs. So, yep, 48%. Rob Zombie is easily one of my favorite artists of all time. I know, he's always harping the same strings, but to me, it never really gets old. His latest albums might have been relative letdowns, but at least to me, this one is his best album in a while. There's no specific reason why this album is better than his previous. What he's doing here is nothing exactly new. It's just better compositions and songs that are more fun to listen to. I am so happy about this. I was honestly thinking Rob will never put out an album that's on the same level of his 2000 stuff. But by the grace of Coffin Joe, it happens. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Positive Highlights. Not you. You guys made a great 86% Spur album. I gotta give this album artistic merit, but still, I'm not really a fan of it. Movements 1 to 5 feel so similar between each other that this segment almost carries no weight to me. The only thing that shines a little is Pharoah Sanders' sax playing. I still enjoy them because they're very soothing. But from movement 6 on, the album finally gets more interesting, with more vivid sound palettes appearing in the composition and showing the more artsy side of the record. In the end, the whole album to me was pretty nice, but I don't feel very attracted to it. It's probably something personal considering I see a lot of people liking it, but yeah, I don't think this is for me. And also, this is my first time listening to third string records, so this may have something to do with my experience. Positive highlights to movement 6 and 7, and a negative to the third one. 64% here to me. People are talking about this album quite a lot. Why not?
A few minutes later.
No, for real. I cannot stress enough how much I love this thing. The combination of soul with funk, hip-hop and R&B is just a match made in heaven. The bangers and the gems are so fantastic to listen. The bops, while they could have been certainly better, they are still pretty freaking sweet, and definitely make their part on the record. My only critique is about the title track, which is the negative highlight. That, at least to me, sucks a bit of the momentum the record was having so far, and all of the songs after it feel a little less impactful than all the trio I was having before. Nonetheless, this is one amazing record, and easily the album of the month. And if things keep going that direction, Genesis Owusu is gonna become a force to be reckoned with in the modern everything scene. Also, here are the positive highlights, and the score I give to this album is a big ol' fat 97%. I really wanted to say this is their best album since the 2000s, but honestly it earns this title by doing the bare minimum. While in general it's not an album that I resent, I also don't really think it's that good. The first 3 tracks feel completely uninspired. From the 4th track on, while it's definitely an improvement, it's just okay. We do have some interesting bass lines, some songs are actually really good and have some good momentum, aka the positive highlights. These are the negatives. But the rest is just middling, especially because so many songs in here have this same crescendo structure, so it all blends together into this very beige palette. Maybe that's why that's the color of the album cover. I don't really feel motivated to listen to this album again, at least not for now. I'm interested to see if this album will grow on me, which I honestly doubt is going to happen, but who knows, 59%. Bill Clinton montage of the month, woo!